Okay, Ivor. So, you know what really burns my toast?
What?
So, to segue into this, I recently saw a meme that was like, if you're thinking about getting this, like a dog, but you really want this, like a stuffed animal,
Oh my
and you're
god.
just gonna do this, like dog in a cage, then don't get a dog. And it was just a very timely reminder with the holidays coming up. Like the type of people that get animals, mainly like, because their kids are like, oh, I want a puppy. Oh, I want a kitty. Nah, 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 nah. And then like they go out and they buy an animal. You should not have animals probably like 89, a solid 90% of the time. There's so much more thought that goes into having an animal than just like, oh, is it cute? Is it small? Like, is it going to be like adorable when it grows up? Like, most people, like, are you even thinking about when it grows up? Like, what it's going to need? How much care is going to go into like keeping this animal alive and happy? Because they're totally dependent on you. They have no one else to look to fulfill their needs and to be happy. And you're walking into this like it's not a huge commitment, which is just mind blowing to me.
You know, that reminds me.
What?
I once saw in my heyday, in Hongdae, there was this woman walking around, going to clubs with her little dog.
No, she was walking into clubs with her dog.
Yes. So if your dog is that kind of accessory, girl, you need to make better choices.
You need to be thinking about like what are their needs, not just like what how do I feel or what do I want to do.
Like caring for an animal is a massive
It
responsibility.
is.
Yeah, my toast would be burned too.
Oh, my toast is burned to a crisp. It is black. There's
Throw it
nothing
in the
left.
trash.
Throw it in the trash, throw it over, try again.
I like that because that was a much shorter rant than what I usually start with. Today I'm coming to you in the spirit of a Shonda Rhimes monologue, like circa Grey's Anatomy. What's that other show?
Scandal.
Scandal. How to
How
get
to
away
get
with
away with
murder.
murder.
Yes,
Yes.
those types of rants. I'm coming to you
Iconic.
with that energy. I'm Ivor.
Coming to you with the anger, the unfiltered anger of an Asian parent who comes home and finds out that their child hasn't set the rice cooker to start. I'm DJ.
Ooh, wow, that's amazing. Our episode title today is "You're Kind of a Liar." Most of us are.
You're a liar.
Hmm.
So, Ivor, you came up with the title for today. What did you mean by that?
You know when a friend asks you to do something, and you know that for many reasons, whether it be you don't have the time, you really don't want to do it, you don't particularly like this friend at this
You
point,
don't have the patience.
you don't have the patience, or you really just need some me time,
Mm-hmm.
but you say yes anyway. Now, that doesn't make you a good friend or a kind person. I think that just makes you a liar.
No.
You're lying to
Hot takes.
yourself. You're lying to yourself. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying no. You have to set boundaries for your mental health.
I think that's a really good point because saying no shouldn't mean that you stop being friends with someone. If
Wow.
you're genuine friends with people, you should be okay with hearing no from them when they need to say no.
And honestly, common sense makes me think that any question has either a yes or a no, and you should be prepared for either one when you ask the question.
You might expect that, hey, we're friends and, like we have this relationship and blah, 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 blah. And so this person is more likely to say yes. But I don't think being offended and then reflecting that back on that person for saying no is the mark of a very equal friendship.
No, because then I think it teeters on codependence.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, codependency.
Is that a topic for another episode?
So I know last week we talked a lot about external validation and trying, that type of behavior where you look for attention from other people because you aren't necessarily giving it to yourself or you're not there to accept that or acknowledge that about yourself.
Hmm.
And I think that ties in really nicely with what we want to talk about today with like setting boundaries for yourself so that you respect yourself and others respect you.
Mm-hmm.
Where like a lot of the type of like yes man or like the yes friend behavior that I typically see in myself is because
Mm-hmm.
it comes from a very people pleasing place where I don't want to make waves and I want to be there for friends and I don't want to be seen as unreliable.
Yeah, I think that's a space that a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah.
Feeling needed by your friends is a type of validation and external validation that does carry a lot of weight. Like you
Oh, it's
do
such a
feel,
high.
yeah, you do feel like to feel needed is part of being human. But when it comes to the point where it is self destructive and your boundaries are not self destructive, just destructive,
Mm-hmm.
and your boundaries are nowhere to be seen, there is
Mm-hmm.
not a border wall in sight. So it's like when you set yourself up as that friend that everyone can rely on, at some point, you also need something. And when you go and ask for something or finally step out into needing someone else, I find that sometimes those people aren't there for you.
Mm.
Does that happen?
I think it's easy to, I feel this where I feel like I have to be the stable friend
Mm.
or, I'm the secret keeper or I'm the reliable friend
Like,
in some relationships.
normally the person that people go to for advice or help, they are kind of not the person that asks for advice or
Right.
help.
And so it's harder to ask for help because in my mind I've built up this self-image
Of
as the person
strength.
that helps others and not the person that gets help.
So when you become that therapist friend, the person that gives advice to everyone, how do you think that's like mentally destructive or mentally
Unhealthy,
damaging? Yeah.
damaging, yeah. Um to me the clearest way is just that you are constantly giving support and you limit yourself from getting support. It's not that you can't get support or that support isn't there for you
Yeah.
because most times when you do actually reach out, those friends that you listen to are so happy to listen to you and to, be on the other side of that relationship.
Okay, so just like how you like to feel needed, other people like to feel needed too. So you going to them for advice or anything, it actually like healthy for them too, and for like your relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. As much as sometimes you can feel like you're a burden or something for someone, showing that you need them is actually part of a healthy relationship.
Yeah, it's interdependency instead of codependency.
Codependency. One thing that I think is very important is setting boundaries um, when it comes
Mm.
to
Mm-hmm.
time.
Time boundaries,
Time
yes.
boundaries. So, like this thing that I said in the beginning with like when you say you'll do something even though you don't really want to, it makes you a liar. The same thing comes for, or something similar or connected to that, is when it comes to time, respecting your time and respecting other people's time. So, I think once you gain a respect for your time and what you do with your time, you automatically also respect someone else's time. So if you're at an engagement or you have an appointment or dinner with a friend, and this has happened so many times to me, where we say 8 o'clock and you tell me 10 minutes to 8 that you'll be late, and then you lie about how late you'll be, that is something that in my age now, I do not tolerate,
Unforgivable.
because I am a human being too. I know that I have slept in late because I was on Twitter, I was on Instagram, I didn't use the time that I had, and that made me late for some kind of appointment, whether it be dinner, work, or whatever. So I know that when most people say they're late, it's because of their own doing.
Mm.
What do you think?
I would say that I don't think it's automatic that when you respect your own time, you start to respect other people's.
Okay, maybe that's just what it was for me.
I think if you're a considerate person, it naturally leads to that thought, but it's
Mm.
not an automatic thing where it's like, I respect my time and so I respect yours, because there are a lot of very inconsiderate people out there.
Okay, that's very true. I think where I had gotten this idea about like respecting other people's time, it came to me when I heard the story. Say you are about to have a business meeting with someone and you're meeting at some, whether it be in their office or cafe or whatever, and you run late because of your poor time management skills, and that person is on time. Now consider the fact that this person's life does not revolve around you and this meeting, and that maybe they have a 5-year-old daughter in the hospital or something, and they have to go visit them after your meeting.
Hmm.
Now if you're 15 minutes late, you are stealing 15 minutes away from that daughter in the hospital.
Oh,
You
definitely.
So little things like that. Consider the time that you are sharing with other people when you have meetings or previous engagements or whatever. Like, there's a lot to be said for an adult who is punctual.
That is one of the hardest things, though, for me personally,
Oh, really?
is being on time.
But you've never really been late with our stuff.
Because I try.
Are you saying that you don't try with it? Or is it because I'm a Virgo?
I think it's just hard because sometimes, despite all of your good intentions, you end up just leaving the house too late. And by the time you notice, you're already going to be late.
Hmm. Maybe this is like a personality thing. I'm saying this as someone who used to be late to things.
Hmm.
I'm saying this as someone who used to not manage his time properly. And even now I struggle. But especially with starting our podcast, I've become a lot better at managing my time.
Hmm.
I think an important part of mental health is taking control of your life.
Oh,
And time
definitely.
management is a big way that you can assert some control over your life, is you decide what you spend your time on. We have the exact 24 hours that Beyonce has.
Do we though? Do
Is
we
her
though?
Are her hours magical?
So, what you're saying about your time management being a way to have more control over your life,
Mm-hmm.
that is so relatable to me because it's such a small, subtle thing. But I do notice that when I'm on time for things or when I'm according to schedule, I am so much less stressed. There is no like rushing, racing feeling about, oh, I'm a bad friend or I'm a bad person because I'm late and this person is waiting for me. And like, oh, like the audacity of like me like being late when like they took time out of their schedule and like they probably have a bunch of other things to do, but
Mm-hmm.
they have to wait for me for us to do this thing. And not having that feeling is such a weight lifted.
Ooh, that feeling of like just freedom, knowing you're on time, knowing you
Yeah.
have your shit together, it's a good, like, peaceful, like, in that moment, you just feel so adult.
And you feel so in control of yourself and your life. It's not like, oh, I'm being swayed by circumstances and I might be late. It's like, no, I took control of when I left the house and when I got ready and all of this stuff. And so I'm going to be on time.
Yeah, so when you're on time and the other person is on time, you both have this unspoken boundary where we're like, we
Hey, we
respect each other's
respect each
time.
other. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's a great way for us to go back to the space of like what's healthy for you, like what behaviors are
Boundaries, healthy
healthy. Yeah.
boundaries.
And that's a very healthy boundary, is respecting your time but also another person's time.
Exactly. And hopefully, respecting your time does lead to respecting other people's time.
When we like circle back to the whole thing about lying to yourself, like, you know the reason you're late, and if you're honest with yourself, it's mostly because of you.
Oh, it's when, for me,
One,
it's 100% me.
me too. Like, it's never been, it's very rarely has it been traffic. Very rarely has it been the subway, because we live in Seoul.
If it is subway or if it is traffic, it's because I did not leave enough of a gap to account for that.
Exactly. And we live, Seoul is a pretty well managed transportation system.
You know
So,
when there's going to be traffic.
you
You know
know,
when the trains are coming.
yeah, the maps are all connected with the traffic systems and all of that. There's
Everything is up
no
there.
excuse unless you're driving. There's no excuse, even if you are
Mm.
driving. Yeah. So the reason why I had was inspired by the whole lying thing for this episode was that I have experience with being a liar. I think everyone
I think
has.
everyone does. It's a
Yeah,
universal experience.
and there's many reasons why we lie. Most of the reasons is that we want to protect ourselves in some
Mm-hmm.
way. And I've been trying to live my life with the phrase of tell the truth. To me, telling the truth remains to be one of the most difficult things and one of the hardest things that we can do,
Mm-hmm.
because lying is so easy.
It's also, in many cases, so natural.
It's so natural. There's this phrase that I read when I was younger, many years ago. The lies we tell ourselves are the most dangerous.
Ooh.
Like the lies you tell
Ooh.
yourself honestly about yourself or like other people are actually more destructive than lying to your boss that you were stuck in traffic. But if you were to tell the truth to your boss that you were stuck, that you were late because of, I don't know, scrolling on Instagram, looking at other people's
I'm
curated
just
lives.
late because of who I am as a person.
Yeah, exactly. Like your boss were to act differently. I understand that level of lying. But when it comes to mendacity to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
that is something that I try and watch within myself,
Mm.
but also recognize with other people, because I know that I am no different than other people. So if I'm lying to myself, I know that other people are lying
Mm-hmm.
to themselves. As much as we think we are individuals, if we live in the same society, the same circle, we do have similar behaviors. So
Oh,
there
of
is a
course.
connection. Like if I'm lying, girl, then you are too.
No, and that's definitely important to think about in terms of healthy boundaries because if you don't want to help your friend move, then
Say so.
probably your friend also doesn't 100% want to help you move either.
Most likely.
So before you ask or before you get offended that someone said no or like, oh, I'm sorry, but I really can't, you got to put some thought into like, why would they say no? And is that, acceptable? Shouldn't that be acceptable?
Yeah,
In a
just
healthy friendship, you should be allowed to say no.
you should be allowed to say no, and your friend should understand that they can't get angry at you for saying no.
Exactly.
And if you live in a favor friendship, you better say bye.
Ooh, that's not a place I want to be.
No, I've had friends like that before. I've had bosses like that before, and I'm like, no, just because you did me a favor doesn't mean that I am now obliged to do you a favor. When you do something for me, it should come because you want to do it, not because you want to use that against me when you are in need.
And that's the trap of, I guess, external validation is
Mm.
because you fall into that cycle or that kind of chain reaction of, I did someone a favor, they did me a favor, I did someone a favor, they did me a favor, and then putting the seal of this relationship on that when it's just mutual self interest.
I don't think friendships should be self serving. I think we find or create a lot more honesty and joy when you live your life in some way in service of others. So if you help someone for the sake of helping them, because that act of helping does do something for you, you feel good about it. So, in the spirit of self care and mental health, what is something that you've done this week that is like a conscious decision to take care of your mental health?
I went on so many good walks this week.
The weather is great
So
for walks now.
it's so nice because
It's
it's
like,
cold enough when you start walking, but then you warm up a bit.
yeah.
Yeah. And just kind of blasting my different playlists. I made a Christmas playlist so that I can walk to all of these different carols and whatever.
I like that. I what I did this week, I started my yoga practice again because I
Ah.
had back in Cape Town, I had started like Bikram yoga, like the
Mhm.
hot room yoga, and there was such a beautiful sense of focus that I'd gotten from it. And when I started weight training here, I kind of put like stretching and like mobility work
Mhm.
like lower on the importance
Mhm.
because I wanted to be a bit more muscular due to my own like body images. And so like having spent like a year, like a couple of years like working on that, you know, now with the lockdown and I can't go to the gym, I just like, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm just gonna put on a yoga thing and do the 26 postures. And it's amazing, like when you're forced in a different kind of focus, what that does for your mental health, I think. And so I would encourage people to find something that you can do, even if it's one thing that you can do that makes you feel like you have a sense of control either over your body, over your space, or over your time.
Yeah, even if it is so small. I mean, sometimes I go the mood doesn't strike me until 10:40 and I don't leave the house until 11 p.m. to go for a walk and then I'm back home at like 12:10. But
Yeah.
that hour was so worth it.
Yeah, like because you made a conscious decision, even though you had put it off, you still made that decision. I'm going to go do this. And because you know you feel better afterwards. So if you're feeling shitty, like maybe you don't have to dwell in or try and find out that moment why you're feeling shitty. Just do the opposite. And I know that this is far easier said than done, especially for people dealing with depression or like
Like a
loss.
daily
I
9
don't
to
know, just
5 Monday through Friday work schedule,
life, you know,
life,
life in general.
pandemic panic.
I think it is very pandemic panic. I think it is very important to take one thing a day for yourself that you feel, you know what, I am taking care of myself. Whether it's your face routine, whether it's yoga, going for a walk like DJ does, whatever it is, find one thing.
Cook yourself a nice meal.
Yeah, I hate cooking.
Oh.
But
I
yes,
don't know. Like, buy yourself a nice little drink or something. Just do something, one little thing that makes you feel good and makes you feel like I'm in control of myself in this moment.
all right, everyone, that wraps up our show. Please take care of yourselves. If you have any questions, you can DM us at this is underscore 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 fine. That's not our fault. It's Instagram's fault because someone that had already taken our name. You.
So sad.
That's so sad. DM us on Instagram if you have any thoughts, any questions, anything you want to add. We'd be happy to communicate with you guys.
You can also message us on our SoundCloud or leave comments on this thing that you're listening to right now.
Pretty soon we will be on
YouTube.
YouTube
Yes.
and Twitter and all of the social. We're working on all of
All
that.
of the social.
All of the social. We'll be the butterflies of social.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Goodbye.
Goodbye.